If you are someone who's outside the US and you've considered going to the US and living there, this is the conversation is going to be very helpful for you because we're going to talk about not only like legally how it's done, but lifestyle and just how the whole thing works and how it would look like for you. So definitely favorite this, send it to your friend and tune in. Patrick, thank you for being here today.
No, thanks, James. I really appreciate you having me on.
No, I just did an interview for your channel, and I think because for the people coming in, taxes are a huge
Oh
issue.
yeah,
So maybe we'll link that interview up here so that
let's
we
do it.
can. So if you watch this video and you want to know about the tax side of it, you can watch that the video on your channel. So that's what we'll do. We'll link that one. I'll find it. Can you give me an overview of what you guys do? Like how you're helping people, what you do, your website? Just give me the big picture. Assume I know nothing.
For sure. So essentially, we provide U.S. immigration solutions. We're pretty much working exclusively with investors, entrepreneurs, and high skilled professionals. If you have a budget over 10K to assign for professional, legal fees, government fees, you possibly could be a good client for us. And there's different modules, different solutions that we have. We started back in 2015 working just with the highest investors, 800, now it's 800K investment, create 10 jobs, EB5, went down to E2. There's no real minimum, but 100,000 or more. And over time, we've also started helping people with different talent visas like the O1 visa and the EB2 NIW.
To kind of hammer in on the point there, when you're coming to the US, there's two paths, right? There's the permanent resident path where you want to get a green card and become a citizen, and then there's visas that are like he's coming here to do something for some period of time and then he has to renew. So this is the E2, the L1, the O1, and the any other like the student visas, the tourist visas, all of those are like non-immigrant visas. And then the immigrant visas are the EB1, 2, EB1, EB2, EB3, and EB5. The EBs, right?
Exactly. Employment based option one, employment based option two. And most of our clients are going to start with some non immigrant solution unless they're already here in the United States, as they want to move in the next 3 to 6 months max. But we have clients that are already here and they're going to go right for a green card with our services, or they're fine waiting overseas for 20, 30 months or however long it's going to take to get the green card, the permanent residence benefit.
So since the E2 is the most popular, can you go over in a little bit more detail um, what the requirements are for this and how like what are the requirements, who can do it, and what's the kind of the timeline and how
For
it
sure.
works?
And it's the most popular green card by far of the ones that we mentioned. There were 53,000 E2 visa issuances in 2023. Prior years were closer to 44,000, and then there was a big drop before during COVID, but even before COVID, it was in the 40 to 44,000. So it's increasing a lot in popularity. There's a few different options for the E2 visa. We're primarily working with the investor option, but foreign companies, say you're a Canadian company, you can also bring over managers and essential employees to work at your Canadian company, Canadian owned company here in the United States. So we're primarily working with individual investors that are investing at least $100,000 and creating a few American jobs, and they own at least 50% of the US business. So it's pretty straightforward, cut and dry. And there's no official minimum investment, but it has to be a substantial investment. And for most businesses, that's going to be 100K or
100K or more. So with the name Visa franchise, are you promoting different franchises? If I want to come to the US and I have $100,000, you going to help me do it?
definitely. What we've started doing with a lot of our clients is if someone doesn't know what they want to do, if you have your own startup and you're very confident about bringing that startup to the US, do that. But if
Yeah.
you don't know what you want to do, franchising can be a good step to at least explore for the first 4 to 6 weeks of working with us. And you're going to have a pretty good idea of, we have a directory of 7,000 franchises on our sister company website, Vetted Biz. We'll give you access to that. We're going to do a custom study on your behalf. Within 6 weeks, it's going to be a pretty good idea if we stay on helping you open a new franchise, acquire an existing franchise, or pivot to acquiring maybe an independent business or starting your own business.
Interesting. So I imagine that people are in Brazil or Germany or whatever, and they're like, okay, I'm going to leave my longtime job and move to the US. They've probably done pretty well, and that in that case, they'd want a franchise. But if they're an entrepreneur and they're doing their own business, you'd recommend that you guys just set up a company in the US, run your own business, maybe hire two people, and that way the investment is really in yourself. You're not buying anything. You're kind of
If they're confident in what they're going to do and they already have an idea, go for it.
like me, for
I'm not.
example. If the E2 equivalent in like in the UK, if I wanted to go get an E2 in the UK, I have a business that I can do remotely. I would just open a business in the UK. Let's say I was in the UK and I want to go to the US. It's all my stuff's remote, so I could open my own a
Well,
company.
what a lot of our clients will do is the spouse will invest in a franchise that serves as the anchor business for the E2 visa, and they can eventually hire a day to day manager. And then maybe the primary breadwinner with remote income, whether it's an operating business in their home country or they're a software developer or whatever, they're able to work from anywhere. That type of business might not fit the criteria and in the box of the E2 visa. So
Okay.
the franchise will really serve as the basis as the 100K is justified and there's going to be a couple American jobs. So if the startup can kind of fit in the criteria of the E2 visa and it makes sense to hire a couple Americans, makes sense to invest 100K plus, then go with that. If not, you could consider a franchise or buying even an existing business, which they trade at different multiples, but say 2 to 3, 4 times the seller discretionary earnings. If they're buying a business for 200K, 300K, the owner might be making 70K, 100K from those operations.
And I want to know what's the difference between like how does the L1 and the O1 work? Because those are common for a lot of people who are coming over for other employers. I understand that like for your business it's less common, but what are the big differences there and when do you use those options?
So one thing I didn't preface, and I should have, which is a major requirement of the E2 visa, is that you have to have a treaty of commerce and navigation with the United States. Last count, there's about 80 countries that have that. All of Western Europe, besides Portugal. Portugal's on its way getting that, just needs to be ratified by the Portuguese government. Notable countries that don't: Russia, Brazil, India, China, Vietnam. So if you're from one of those countries and your spouse doesn't have an E2 visa eligible passport and you have a business with 10, 20 employees, you could potentially invest, open up a US affiliate, or show common ownership and transfer yourself or one or more of your key executives, employees to the US entity. So we've done probably 50 or so of those cases. It's much more complicated than the E2 visa because you have to show that it's a decent sized business in their home country. And there's different steps to go about that, getting that visa, usually a higher investment threshold, and you have to be the manager of managers here in the United States. So it's not just 2 or 3 employees, generally at least 8 employees. But
Mm,
that's generally
okay.
how we work with those L1 visa entrepreneurs. Our first case was Brazilian, owned a couple gas stations in Brazil and opened up a franchise and transferred his son, who was one of the key managers at the couple gas stations that they owned in Brazil.
Context of what you guys are doing and how you're helping people, you're using it as an alternative to the E2 when the people don't come from treaty countries. And obviously, I guess if you are management of a company in the U.S., you can come and do and work from in that context too. Like if you have a job and your company has a branch in the U.S. and it's a big company, you could come in. That's how they would bring
That's
most
the
people
most
in.
practical. That's the majority of cases are like that, where it's an employee being transferred for like an IBM or Siemens.
Yeah,
Where our case is more for small, mid-size owner operators
yeah. You're. I
generally.
mean, we're you and I are both working with like entrepreneurs, smaller businesses, and people that need to get it done. Obviously, I mean, I can help whatever Siemens or Cat, whatever, like all any of these giant companies. But yeah, they're going to send people over on L1s with in-house corporate attorneys and all that. So that's if you're still watching this, click this video and you can watch what happens when you move for tax purposes because that's still going to apply to you.
One thing on the O1 visa side is that we can support, basically act as the agent, the business manager, or representing the foreign company to
Oh,
bring over that high skilled employee.
oh, cool.
So let's give an example. You have a successful consulting practice in India. You have a ton of US clients. You're at the top of your field. pay or in some associations, you've been in the press, most likely you're eligible for the O1 visa. And we can act as your business manager and leverage some of those contracts with US companies to bring you over on the O1 visa. And there's no investment requirement and there's no job creation requirement. You're being brought here for your talents. So that would be an application of the O1 visa, where if you're already doing business with American companies, and you are at the top of your pay, generally top 5% for your given role in your country, generally we can meet the other criteria for you to be eligible for the O1 visa to continue your consulting work from here. And there's even options for us to find employment opportunities for you as well.
Awesome. That's really great. So, in summary here, if you any kind of U.S. immigration, you guys can either help directly facilitate it or send to someone who can get it done. So, I think it's a all-in-one encompassing thing, and the way you've set it up makes a lot of sense. I have a question about when you talk to new clients, how do you guide them to picking a visa? Like, how do you help someone decide which visa is best for them?
So we're not in the game of saying like, okay, there's 50 visas and this is definitely the best for you. Usually they come to us self-educated and they want to move and they want to invest in a small business. They've pretty much already identified the E2 visa as the best option, and they're ready to go through that process. And at times we'll bring in an independent immigration attorney earlier in the process to decide between different visa categories. But we always work. The client's always going to engage an immigration attorney throughout the process, and especially part of it going from that non-immigrant to that immigrant category and dealing with whether you apply it at a consulate or do an adjustment of status, which green card is really going to be the best for you or your spouse. That's more the work for the immigration attorney that we would bring in, and we have attorneys that speak 5+ languages, and usually we match make based on the expertise, the profile, if it's an entrepreneur investor or if it's a high skilled professional, and bring in the attorney earlier or later in the process depending on the case.
That's great. So you and that's a really great way for you to give the best service to the clients is to have independent attorneys you work with. And what you guys really specialize in at the end of the day, it seems, is finding the right franchise. I mean, you're called Visa franchise, right? So is placing the right franchise, the right business opportunity for the people who want the E2. So and the E2 is the most popular visa. So that's really great. And so even if you want to do an EB2 and you can get them the attorney they need if they reach out to you.
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
to date, we've probably worked with over 100 immigration attorneys in the past 9 years. So we have great relationships with attorneys all over the United States that speak multiple languages. And a key is that they have a high rate of success and high volume.
Yeah.
If you're going to apply for an E2 visa or O1, or you could talk a bit about the EB3 category, you want an attorney that does a lot of volume and they're keeping up to speed with different changes in the adjudicating trends for that visa category, and ideally even at the consulate level.
So that's was my next question. How do you guys stay on top of the changes in the immigration laws and the tax laws? And I guess to answer it for you is you work with hundreds of different, very well qualified attorneys who are in the trenches.
I'm in contact weekly with at least 10 immigration
Yeah.
attorneys, and of those 10 attorneys, their practices are doing over 10,000 visa petitions a year. And they have good flow, and they're all members of ALA, a network, I think, of 6,000, association of 5,000 plus immigration attorneys. So there's a lot of information flow. And we're able to see too with our clients, 10 to 15 clients every month, different trends in consulates and how the consulate officers might be looking at different businesses and
Yeah.
wanting to see different structures.
Yeah. And like minimum investments or the way the paperwork's arranged. And the
Yeah. And even
EB2
little
is,
things like there were a lot of Argentines that had business plans to do real estate development or even fixing and flipping homes, but many of them didn't do their business plan, and they did like one house flip in 5 years where they said they would do 15. So that basically shut it off. In Buenos Aires, house flipping business, you're not going to get approved. Your compatriots really screwed up for you. So you have some of that that's like face on the consulate level where, sorry, like it's don't try applying with a trucking business or a house flipping business, especially in that consulate. It's going to be difficult.
That's funny. Yeah, that's a specific heads up there. So that's where the experience really adds a ton of value. I wanted to ask about the franchise that you have. What are there specific industries or sectors that you guys focus on? Or like maybe what's the top five types of franchises that you guys promote or work
I
with?
want our clients to be open fast and start making money fast. I think psychologically, mentally, it's going to be a lot easier the adjustment to the US than waiting 18 months to break even with a veterinarian clinic
Yeah,
to find the site, build it out, hire the vet, get your initial portfolio of dog, cat clients. So I like the businesses, especially if it's a first time entrepreneur, that the franchisors handling the sales, marketing, product, vendor relationships, and the franchisee just serves a client and builds their team.
yeah.
So it could be like a window washing business, pest control, and mosquito type business
Like
that
service
you're just,
businesses, it sounds like.
yeah, service businesses, junk removal. Most of our clients do service businesses. Anything retail, I prefer when it's an acquisition, unless you're already living here, because it's a pain to find the
Yeah,
location, site
it's high
selection,
cost.
permits.
Yeah, restaurants like a fat. People think franchise. They think like fast food franchise a lot, but those are like super expensive, and there's a lot of barrier entry. There's a lot of ongoing costs, and there's a lot of risk.
Well, James, like a lot of our clients are professionals. They work in the service industry. So
Hmm.
it's difficult. Like a lot of people that open a small retail business or a motel, they're doing that because they don't have other options. They couldn't be an accountant. They couldn't do these different service type businesses, run a service business, scale up. So anything that's like very simple is generally not going to make much money, at least from what I've seen in the
What
U.S.
do you
And
mean simple? Well, window washing is simple, but
you're right. Window washing is simple. Sorry, simple where the customer comes to you.
that's not
A
that.
lot
But
of people,
okay,
they don't speak, they don't speak English well, or they don't want to do sales. They
yeah.
don't want to go out in the field. So there are some relatively simple businesses that you can make good money, but nothing that the customer is coming to you, as I've
In
seen.
the U.S., if it's easy and it makes good money, it's oversaturated. Everyone's done it.
And
Everyone's
it's
doing
not,
it.
that window washing example is not going to make as much money as a health, home care staffing business where you have 50 to 300 caregivers, people aren't showing up, you have to place someone in and out. The more
Yes,
complex
yes.
business will make more money, but a simple retail business like a 7-Eleven, it's you're going to work a lot of hours and you're going to hit a peak in your earnings
Well,
capacity.
the window wash, but again, I'm gonna push back a little bit. I mean, not you. You know more than I do, but
Yeah,
pest control, a window washing business, if you can hire the right people and you can expand to the right territories, those can really scale too. And the overhead is just so much less.
correct.
I invested in a restaurant in the past, and it was horrible. It was like a ton of work. People don't come. There's just so many issues with supplies, and it's so expensive. And it was a massive failure. And the big success was that I learned that I'll never do a restaurant again or any kind of service business like that. And I would go wash windows every day before going to own a restaurant. So
So yeah, though using that example, like say you invest 100K equipment, working capital, the initial truck for the window washing business, you should get up to 500K of sales after no more than 2 years, and you're probably running a 25% margin, and you can keep growing that business. And the 100K that you initially invested, you should be able to sell that business for at least 200K after the business stabilizes. And if you want to keep growing it,
when you
you know,
get when you want when you're like, I'm done with this E2 visa, I want to go back to Ecuador, and then you sell the business and you make money, and it's like a big profit, right?
exactly. One thing
Um,
we really look at is the resale value. So like a Subway costs 330K to open, but to buy one's like 220. So why would you ever want to open a new business where you're not going to recoup your capital investment?
and
And
especially
a
when
lot,
there's 25,000 subways in America, there's probably got to be one
yeah.
for sale.
And there's like 800 or 1,000 closing every year that no one ends up buying.
What's the timeline like? If I want to do go through all the visas, if you don't mind, and tell me like the
Sure.
timeline from hey, I'm interested to hey, I'm flying to the US.
Depending where the client's going to apply and how long it takes them to select and go through the diligence process for the franchise, 3 to 6 months. if they're applying for the E2 visa. L1 visa if they pay for premium processing, similar time frame, maybe add a month. O1, it really depends on how public of a persona they are. If they've authored articles, if articles have been written about them, if they're already in associations, it could take 1 month to prepare the case. It could take a year to prepare the case for that talent visa.
Hmm.
And then the EB2 NIW is taking 20 to 30 months.
But
Um,
EB2 NIW, you're coming to get a green card though.
exactly.
So
That's a big
that's
benefit,
yeah.
but we're talking 20 to 30 months for that category.
Yeah, I mean but it's completely the EB2 NIW. I used to work with a firm that did a lot of these, and you have to again prove it's in the national interest of the United States to let you come in, and you get a green card when you come, which is completely different from coming in on a temporary visa.
For sure. And we see the approval rate if you're not already here in the United States. Talking to attorneys that do a lot of volume is lower. So a lot of our clients will already be here on an E2, already be here on an O1 visa, and switch over to the EB2 NIW based on what they're already doing. So it's not a proposed endeavor, it's what they're actually already doing.
Is
And the
there an
approval rate's higher for that.
is there an issue to be on a non-immigrant visa while applying for an immigrant visa? Because then you're changing your intention a
It
little bit.
depends on the category. Like L1 visa, it's not a problem. H1B, these are true like dual intent. And then for E and the O1 visa, it can be an issue if you're not going to file the green card at the consulate and you said you're going to adjust status here. That's a big no-no. You should be working with an immigration attorney and they
Yeah.
should have been educated to how you file that petition. But as long as you haven't started the process of adjusting status or scheduled the consular interview, there's like a critical step essentially where it's delicate on trying to get a new E2, trying to get a new O1,
Oh,
or
yeah.
traveling in and out of the country. So there's a delicate, say, 6 to 9 months that you really need to have the immigration counsel to make sure you and your family are fully compliant with U.S. immigration law.
How long does it take to get a student visa?
It depends a lot on the consulate. And I know there was huge pushback in India because it was taking months, and now they've significantly reduced that backlog. But that's really depending on the
It's on
consulate.
the
Where
consulate. So
it could
that's
be
your
5 days, it
yeah.
could be what was at the worst case, 5, 6 months.
And it's the same for the tourist visas. If you're in like Morocco and you want a US tourist visa, is different than if you're in
It's really varies a lot. For a while, some of these consulates were backlogged nearly 2 years for the tourist visa, and we actually had wealthy individuals that were getting the E2 visa just because the tourist visa was taking so long. So they would invest 100, 200, 300K, get the
yeah.
E2 visa, although they didn't have an intention to live here and enjoy all the benefits of the E2 visa.
Well, the big benefit is that that's it though. It's more free travel. You can
It's
tell them you're working, and you don't have to be, and you can leave and not be a tax resident, which we go over in our video. So can you we go into a little bit more of the costs of doing this? You mentioned that like obviously there's fees for buying a business. What are the general like attorney fees ballpark, and then like the government fees for like the
yeah.
E2 and the EB2
So
and the
say everything all in, like business plan, the LLC, EIN, the different accounting costs, professional fees, legal fees, and the government fee for most of these categories is going to be 10 to 15,000.
okay, pretty easy, pretty
Yeah, and we
around.
offer, depending on the case, we'll do a money back guarantee on all the fees,
Oh,
or
cool.
all the fees minus the government.
Yeah,
So
sure.
like
Yeah,
for
yeah.
our E2 visa investors, we have options that we'll guarantee as long as they fulfill like 5 different criteria. Because our final approval rate for the E2 visa is 99%,
You heard
and
it
the
here,
first time's
folks.
about 92.
Guaranteed by Visa franchise. You're
I can't
guaranteed
guarantee you'll get it, but I can guarantee the fees you pay
money
us.
back guarantee. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really great. That's very there's like
I
it's
don't think
basically
anyone else does that. It took
nothing
us
to
like
lose.
9 years to just be like, okay, why don't we start doing this? We'll have more clients and it'll be an easier sales process. And I'll look at our track record, but I don't think anyone else does that for the E2 category.
Well, I you have an awesome offer because there's always people asking like where can I buy a business, and now I can say, hey, watch this video, meet Patrick, and check out Visa franchise. And now I'm glad we have this interview that we can answer some questions for too.
we can help with the startup, or we have a vetted network of business brokers. So if you're looking to buy a business in Florida, buy a business in Texas, we have brokers that can help you as a buyer find that ideal business. It just takes a while, is the issue with buying an independent business, and you'll have to go through different offers and quality of earnings reports. I don't know if you do those, James, but they
I
can
don't
add up over time. Yeah.
quality of earnings. I'm a tax guy. I'm not a. There's a CPA friends that I refer to that do compilations, reviews, audits, all of that horrible stuff. I don't do any of that. I send that all out. That's the worst.
Yeah.
Do you have a good success story or someone you just helped get set up? What kind of where's he coming from? What kind of business did he buy? Did he bring his family? Where'd they move? Some kind of general story you can tell us?
We have a client that had invested, one of the few examples of a really positive experience that I've heard with food. And it was just in the right area, in a growing area near Sarasota, Florida. Healthy food, pretty low investment amount. But talking to the franchisor, he's the number one franchisee, and in less than a year, operations cleared $1 million of revenue and is running at a pretty healthy profit margin. So I think he invested like $250,000 into the business, and I'd imagine he'd be making about $250,000 a year from his
So he
investment.
paid himself back year one, and now he has a franchise already locked and
We'll
loaded.
say, yeah, say it took 2 years because it took time to find the site, build out. So we want to add in that period, but still not bad getting
I
your
guess
money
you got to
back in
factor in the
two and a
tax
half
expense,
years.
but yeah, but he's got a
Taxes.
loyal client base and all that stuff. Where did he come from?
He came from Brazil,
Oh,
dual
Brazil.
national from Brazil.
Doing that. Okay, so but he's
So
not a
Brazil
Brazilian
doesn't
owner.
have the E2 treaty.
Yeah,
So a lot of people have different passports, like whether it's through ancestry, Italian passports, Spanish passports,
I talked
or
to a
maybe you're,
guy today this morning who is Brazilian Austrian.
oh, okay,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
We've had
So
Brazilian Croatian, Brazilian Argentine, probably at least like eight or so dual nationalities from there.
what's some last advice you have for someone who's considering um, moving to the U.S.? Why would they want to come here? What's some last advice you got for the people?
So we have a lot of Canadian clients, a wave of Canadian clients that are in the process of investing in businesses. And I think it varies where you're coming from. But for Canadians, we hear a lot weather. We hear issues with COVID restrictions, that they felt the government was too intrusive, high cost of living, um, lack of work opportunities. So letting in too much high skilled labor to Canada for the amount of jobs that are available, as well as high taxes. So I don't know exactly what you would pay if you're making 250 in Canada, but I imagine
Double.
45%. Where
Yeah,
in
it's high.
Texas or Florida, maybe you pay half the amount of taxes. I don't know.
Yeah, the taxes are way less. Again, I work with a lot of people in this that are similar clients that come to me for different things. But yeah, it's the people coming from South America generally are wealthier and want to just not live in fear and have better access, better systems and different things like that. That like when we used to work with wealthy Brazilians and the EB2s, they just wanted to like drive fancy cars and wear nice watches without being scared about having criminal issues and wherever they were from and like Sao Paulo or whatever and then the Canadian some people come for opportunities for business for paying less taxes because the tax rates are in the developed world pretty low in the US.
Pretty much across the board, people are coming for the next generation. Most of our clients have children and they want to raise their kids with US values, US education, and have the opportunities to have all different types of work opportunities in
There
the
is a
state.
lot of there's a lot of work opportunities. The it's funny you see the people coming and going everywhere, but you're always welcome to come to the US and we love to have you here. And if you want to come here the most efficient, quick way possible and with a business that'll probably make money, you want to sign off and tell them what are the next steps if they're interested in talking to you guys?
No, definitely appreciate that, James. So the easiest would be visit visafranchise.com. You can go through our solutions, go through our processes on that, or even just apply to be a client. It takes 5 minutes, and we'll have a free 30-minute discovery and solution call to see if we can be of support to you or to point you in the right direction, whether whether it's you're looking for to get a student visa and study here or get a green card through marriage. There's a lot of things we do not do at all in immigration. We don't want to touch, but more often than not, we have a service provider, an immigration attorney to put you in contact with.
Thanks for being here, buddy. I really appreciate it. If you are interested in knowing what the taxes are like when you come to the US, Here's going to be a click whenever Patrick puts the video up to the interview I did on his channel about the tax implications of when you do move to the US, what to look out for, and all of that stuff. So I encourage you to check out that video as well. And if you want more content like this, like and subscribe to the channel. I'm talking about this stuff all the time about coming to the US, not coming to the US companies, and all that stuff. So thanks for being here, and I will see you guys on the next video. Thank you again, Patrick.
Thanks, James.